Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, August 20th, and it's 12:02. And so I'm going to call the Athens Planning Commission meeting to order. The first order of business is to establish whether we have a quorum or not. And looking to my left and right, we do. We have 4 members present and 1 is absent. So we have a quorum and can do business today. Next item is the disposition of the July 16th minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at those? It's been a while since we met. Everybody has? Mm-hmm. If so, are there any comments, corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I move.
Moved by Mr. Stone and seconded by the mayor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Allie, you didn't vote, correct? Because you weren't present at the meeting, so no problem. Okay, so it passed 3-0.
If I may,
Yes.
just take the liberty to introduce our newest commissioner on the Planning Commission, and that is Ellie Rapley. Ellie, thank you for your willingness to serve on this important board as we move forward in time. So we did fulfill the vacancy left by Austin Phillips, who had served for a number of years, also doing a great job. I always appreciate having someone who is representing the business sector on the Planning Commission, because that's vitally important for our community as we look at growing from an economic development standpoint, as well as just representing all interested parties when it comes to planning and development here in the city of Athens. So, Allie, thank you for agreeing to serve.
You're welcome.
Yes, also, thank you. So we'll move to the one case we have today. It's case number 25-06. It's the Columbus Road, Lancaster Street, Columbia Avenue Neighborhood Hub rezoning. So with that, I'll turn it over to our planner.
Awesome. So because I was absent at the last Planning Commission meeting, I put together a little presentation that just summarizes the process that city staff and the Planning Commission went through in order to come to this recommendation of rezoning. So if they could pull up my presentation slides. Perfect. All right, so this conversation started happening back in the spring. What began the conversation was actually a discussion about how the city could reutilize the old fire station headquarters. Now that we have relocated to the new headquarters down on Stimson Avenue, the city started looking into potential future users for the old station and was having difficulties with the property zoning. What we discovered is that the area around the fire station and the fire station's property itself were zoned for residential, and it did not allow for a commercial use, which could be pretty compatible with that existing structure, as well as the access to Columbus Road. So we were starting to look at the entire hub here, and we noticed that the zoning in the general vicinity does not actually meet a lot of the existing land uses, and so we decided to dive a little deeper into what zoning could be appropriate. So our first step was to actually take a look at the existing land uses. We discovered that there was a mix of residential uses based on density, everything from single family up to apartment buildings with 3 or more units, as well as a mix of commercial uses, which include office space as well as retail. And then there is that closed, basically an auto service center there on the corner of Lancaster and Columbus Road. The existing zoning really only allowed for residential, and so there was a mismatching of the land uses and the zoning that these properties were assigned. So the Planning Commission started thinking about how this area could actually really serve as a walkable neighborhood commercial hub. We see it as a connection point between the west side and the north side neighborhoods, and really saw an opportunity for, if we're going to be talking about rezoning, to make sure that we set up a future in like, say, 40 years' time for development that could really serve these neighborhoods. So we started looking at potentially rezoning to allow for small-scale commercial, retail, office, and also continue to have that mix of residential uses, which would help create like a welcoming, walkable hub for both the west side and north side neighborhoods. Our next step really was to then go to the neighborhood. We had drafted some potential rezoning maps, but felt that we couldn't approve anything without really going to the neighborhood and checking in with them about what they really celebrated about their neighborhood, what they wanted for the future, and also what they wanted to avoid for the future. So we hosted a public meeting back in June, and it was a very successful event. We had around 50 people attend that meeting and received very good feedback. We did summarize a lot of that input into a report, and that is available in your packets today and was presented at the last Planning Commission meeting as well. And based on that input, we kind of summarized a few key points. First of all, we very strongly heard that the old Dairy Queen site did not serve the surrounding streets very well due to the drive-through use, just creating issues with the drive-through stacking, blocking a lot of the road there. So the neighborhood was not in favor of a drive-through use on this site, especially in the future. We also had heard concerns from neighbors about the traffic congestion on Lancaster Street with parked cars and also increased traffic. I think this was during the time that Joneswood Drive was closed, so a lot of traffic was being filtered up through Lancaster Street. And the neighbors were concerned about potentially increasing density in this area without addressing congestion issues. We also heard from neighbors that they have concerns over comfortability when it comes to walking through this area, especially through this intersection of Columbus Road, Lancaster Street, and 2nd Street. We heard some comments that there just isn't very reliable pedestrian infrastructure, whether the sidewalks are in bad shape or too narrow, or as you can see in this photo, there's not a pedestrian crossing on every side of the road there, which creates just some issues for pedestrians. We also heard from the neighbors that they would really like to see a neighborhood park. We know that the Children's Museum of Discovery has been interested in creating a pocket park, and the neighborhood was very supportive of having that type of community, whether it be like a green space or an open space, as an amenity for both neighborhoods. And then we did also hear that some residents were in support of having walkable commercial uses in that area, and they see the benefits of not having to go either to Uptown or to East State Street in order to access retail shopping as well as restaurants and office spaces and the like. So where we are now, we have the proposed zoning map as you see on the screen, where we have a mix of residential zoning and also business zoning that address a lot of the mismatched land uses. So we bring a lot of the existing land uses into compliance with these rezonings, as well as creating some zoning, and I put buffers in quotes because it's kind of an interesting concept, but zoning buffers in order to kind of phase down that density in order to protect or to buffer the single family uses from the higher density land uses. I will comment that in the B1 zone, residential uses are allowed as a primary use. So those existing residential uses, especially along North Lancaster Street, can continue to be residential for the future. And any other residential uses that may exist, say in the B2 zone, can continue to exist as residential. And in the future, B2 zones do allow for residential, just the second floor and above. So in the future, if that property is redeveloped, they will have to come into compliance with that B2 zoning. But that section of North Lancaster Street has a minimal amount of residential uses there. And with the cemetery across the street, we thought that the B2 zoning was appropriate because it wasn't directly abutting an R1 zone. Other concerns that were brought up during the public input that can't be addressed by zoning are some of the public infrastructure issues, as well as the conversation about the need for a park. Related to the infrastructure issues, we can definitely share those comments with EPW so that they can be aware of those when they're starting to plan any future infrastructure improvement projects. But we can also require new development to improve sidewalks when they are redeveloping a site. So I did want to include that on this slide. And then related to the park, we are planning an update to our comprehensive plan. And so I would like to bring the Arts, Parks, and Recs department into that conversation and looking at a larger network planning for any future parks and bring up the potential to have a small park in this area as well through that process. So I just wanted to address those up front since they can't technically be addressed through zoning. That's all I had planned. You have an updated version of the map from last meeting. If you have any questions about the proposed zoning, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Megan. So one of the things I failed to do is with the, and I'm really excited, we've got a large turnout today, and but I wanted to say that if there's anybody here who plans to speak, I would ask that they raise their right hand now, and I would like them to support the statement I make, I guess. Anybody who does speak, I would ask that they provide true information to the best of their knowledge as a part of their presentation or their comments. And if you will do, if you're comfortable doing that, please say "I will." I will. Thank you. Okay. I think, do we have a sign-in sheet too up there?
I do not.
We do not. Okay. Well, if you do come up, I would ask that you state your name and address as well. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Ms. Jennings at this point? We've spent quite a bit of time with this whole thing, and anyway, no questions? No. Does anybody in the audience care to speak? We do have a sign-up sheet, so if we could pass, sign, if you come to speak, sign that, but also we'd like to pass it around even to those who are not going to speak so that that they are acknowledged for having been here. So, okay.
I'll just take a second to state that I live and own property in this area, so for this matter, I'll recuse myself from discussion and voting.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi there.
Okay.
My name's Michelle Pappy. I live at 240 North Congress Street. I'm going to go ahead and read a little statement I prepared first, and
Okay.
then you can ask me questions or whatever. We'll go from there. As a 32-year resident of the west side of North Hill, I'm very well aware of the neighborhood. I did attend the public meeting in June and was appreciative that we had that meeting with many of my neighbors. Upon viewing the July 16th Planning Commission meeting online, the proposed zoning map, and the Envisioning Your Neighborhood report, I was a bit dismayed and puzzled by many of the statements made in the proposed zoning map. And I'm not sure, is the map updated from what we've most recently seen, or was?
The map shared at the July 16th Planning Commission meeting is the one we're considering today.
Okay, thank you, thank you. It did not seem that this was the same meeting I attended. I started speaking with other neighbors who had similar thoughts. Many of us are proponents of cleaning up the zoning, making sidewalks safer, biking accessibility, and a reasonable plan for business development. Sorry, I lost my place here. After reviewing and discussing the proposed zoning map, we believe that further neighborhood input and discussion is needed. After all, we live and access the areas under discussion every day. For long-term residents, we know the long-term effects of inconsistent zoning and how neighboring zones can be negatively affected, especially for R1 zoning areas. This area of Athens is not unlike other areas, but we are older, our streets are narrow and winding, our infrastructure is well-used, and we have high housing density. Our topography just this year has been taxed with boulders destroying a home, road landslides, and towering trees falling. Increased density and increased traffic were the #1 concerns of residents living in these areas. We decided the best way to approach the commission was to ask the commission to postpone voting on the map and have further discussion with us. It is important to know that we advocate for thoughtfully improved zoning, but are concerned with inadequately discussed modifications to our R1 zones and needed buffers between zones. I'm submitting the 65-plus petition signatures requesting the commission to postpone voting on the map and re-engaging with the neighborhood community. Just so you know, the signed petition, folks are from Sunset, 2nd Street, Columbia Avenue, and then everything in the valley below the east side of Lancaster, North Congress, Ellis, anybody who would be in that valley who would be directly affected. So that is our request.
Okay. I'll take your petition. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Oh, Mr. Stone?
Sure. Ms. Pappy, could you, when you say "we," are you speaking as a spokesman for this group, spokesperson for this
I
group?
think there are other people who are going to speak, but there was a group of us that sat down and met.
Okay, number one. Number two, is there an individual in that group who would be willing to identify the existing land uses that the neighborhood does not agree with and collectively could say
I can do that if you
existing
put the
land
map
uses
up.
we don't agree with,
Yeah.
that currently you would like to see zoned out?
Or re-engaged with to discuss. Sure.
Well, no, I mean, to go back,
Okay.
so we identified that there's mismatched zoning right now. So
Right.
there's existing land
We
uses
know
that
this.
that are grandfathered, that are not. And so
Right.
ultimately, I think some of this effort was to attempt to change the zoning to match the existing land use so that they weren't subject to savings clause. That is to say, they weren't grandfathered and they were acceptable uses under current zoning.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds as though the members that have signed this petition don't want that. It sounds as though that there are particular land uses that currently exist that you don't want to see changed to make it so that it's an acceptable use, and you'd rather see them be something else. Can you or can this group identify which parcels those are?
Sure. Do you want me to?
Please.
Do you have a map? Yeah, there is quite a bit to discuss, so that's why.
I mean, there's not
We
that many
asked for the
parcels.
re-engagement.
Sure. There's not that many parcels up there, though. I mean, I think I can count on, I mean, there's a number of parcels that are identified in the B2 zone there, but most of those are road right-of-way for Columbus Road. If you know what they are, that would be very helpful for this group.
Okay, I can start out just basically, okay, just to
Sure.
give you some idea. I think most people are okay with what we call the island, which is your side of the fire station, that whole area there, with certainly redevelopment or rezoning in that area. That's not the concern. The major concern is when you are abutting an R1 zone. And so the ridge from North Lancaster through Columbia there, the east side of that, you've changed to a B1 that abuts and goes all the way down to Ring Street, Mound Street, that area
I
down
understand.
there.
Can you put the
Okay?
map up, Ryan? Well, can Ryan put the map back up on the screen so that everybody can see?
Proposed?
Yeah. Proposed zoning map. Yeah. Okay, got it. I'm sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, so see where there's B1 there, that was R1. The people who live below, because y'all realize this is a ridge, and it's a straight drop off from Lancaster Street straight down. And so when you start saying a B1, people are concerned with density issues, runoff issues, all kinds of things that would be much different than what exists right now, which are rentals. We understand they're rentals. But, you know, what does that do with parking? What are people going to be traveling down Mound Street now, Pine Street? You know, it just brought up a whole lot of concerns. The other major section is R3 across from the cemetery there, still the east side of the ridge. And y'all know this is a ridge. It's a complete drop off behind those houses. Some of them look like they're 4 stories from that side of the street, right? And there has been a lot of issues with infrastructure through there, be it sewer, be it trees falling, be it lots of things. And when you go, and so could it be zoned R2? Possibly. I think that's part of the discussion versus R3, which R3 really, you know, bumps up the density, the amount of parking, the amount of cement, all the things that could potentially harm that valley. Sure. Okay, because that's another way to say it for people who don't know the area. That's a valley. And I know Mr. Stone is very well aware of the infrastructure issues in that area, you know, really well aware. The other issue is the other side of Columbus Road from 2nd up to Sunset and then starting down the hill. That is a canyon, a valley. We're trying to understand the people on 3rd and Eric and Sunset are kind of wondering what would that be? We know that there is a retaining wall there on the other side of Columbus Road. What does that mean? So the R2 and the B2 there really were concerning for people as well. And then where the old Dairy Queen resides, I mean, there are people living up in there in single-family homes. So this R2 section there, that it didn't seem to make some sense to a lot of the people who live there. So that would be, and then there's a multitude of other things to discuss. So I don't know that we want to hash it all here today in the meeting. That's why we were asking for a re-engagement with maybe a small group of residents to sit down with y'all and to discuss it. The other big issue is 184 North Lancaster, which is, for many people, realizing that's the old JFS building owned by the county, and that's been turned over to a private developer owner. And I know that the people, again, it sits on a ledge, basically. And there's concern about what if stuff was moved behind there. I know there's a city right-of-way. There's a big concern about that building hanging on the hill and what that does to the neighborhood behind it.
Sure.
I think that's in a nutshell, kind of what we're discussing. Did that help, Mr. Stone?
Very much. Thank you.
Anybody else want to ask any questions of what she's presented?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay. Please come to the podium. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Rinaldi Eichenberg. I live at 5 Ring Street. So I'm directly behind the old Job and Family Services building. And I mostly want to echo the statements that Ms. Pappy shared in terms of concerns and a request that we just have the opportunity for a little bit more engagement with the city and the city planner. The previous meeting, again, I think that was helpful. It was really well attended. I think, again, to echo some previous statements, I don't know that it's been fairly represented in that a large majority of the people attending that were opposed in some form or another. And I think there was a great demand to talk about this change, this proposed change in more detail. And we kind of ended the meeting, it felt a little early. It had gone on long enough. I think to the credit of the city planner, she'd answered a lot of questions. But I think there's still a lot of demand. And in gathering signatures from the community, a lot of people weren't able to attend the one meeting for whatever reason. And I can tell that there's definitely demand for more engagement. Someone like myself, I'm kind of a slow processor, and so I need time to think about things, especially this is kind of a big change. Living at Ring Street, I think my home life stands to be impacted pretty dramatically by these changes. And so some of the questions that I have, I didn't have them at the first meeting. And I don't know if this is the forum to have them answered, but I'll maybe list some of them so you know what kinds of questions that I have. Can multiple lots be combined to allow for larger buildings? So if we're talking about R3 that's directly up the hill from me, could some of those lots be combined to create a larger building? Some of these are like zoning, specific zoning, others are less so. Is building height determined from the street level or from some other, because again, to Michelle's point, some of these buildings up at the top of the hill, it's like a 2-story difference from street side to the back. Will Ring Street become an access point for some of these larger potential R3 buildings on Linkster and Columbia? Where is parking going to be placed for these buildings? I know that there was a parking lot requested for the old JFS building to go in behind. That's obviously a concern for me because I'm at the bottom of that hill, and so if there's going to be more runoff, more noise, removal of the green space and sound barrier that is currently there growing, that's one of my major concerns. I want to point out what I think are some minor flaws in the proposed zoning map in my area. If we can bring that up, and maybe is it okay if I go over to one of these monitors
Sure.
to just point them out?
I need a microphone since we're on TV right now.
Okay.
Is that one on?
Is it, with that one, can we turn that one on?
That is a Ryan question.
It's the first time I've been here when we had a need for a handheld.
This one here.
Yeah.
So I'll try to speak loudly. I'll try to direct towards the microphone. So here I am at this triangle on Ring Street, side ring. I know that 7 ring right next to me is this triangle and then these 2 rectangles. That's zoned 2 ways. I don't know if that's part of the current zoning already, so it's like half B1, half R1. I know that 11 ring is this here, which is half R1, half R3. These lines don't exist on the county auditor's website, so I don't know how, these are contiguous lots as far as I can tell, so unless I'm missing some information there, I know that's a minor technicality, and I'd like to think someone else would have caught that, if not for me, but it also feels consequential to me because I'm right next to that, and I don't know what the consequences are of a zoning change being passed, and then we find the change, and maybe one of the property owners likes the change as is, and then that's kind of right next to me. So again, that's maybe like a minor concern technicality. I think ultimately asking for a couple more meetings to discuss these, it's either going to be that or in front of city council. I think it would be a better environment to just have more meetings similar to the one that we had on June 11th. Any questions from you all?
Anybody? No? Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thanks.
Someone else?
Hi, excuse me. I'm Ellen Crotel. I live at 230 North Lancaster Street, and I am right beside the Dairy Queen. First off, I'd like to say thank you to Ms. Jennings for meeting with us and also for taking my personal concerns in when my property was zoned commercial and has changed it to an R2, which is okay with us if that's the way it's going to be. But as far as Dairy Queen goes, it presents a very big problem with traffic, and I know that we went down to a B2, but there are some in the neighborhood, is that right, B2? There are some in the neighborhood who think even that is just a little too much. We're not opposed to commercial use there at all. It's just what type. We did get rid of the drive-through, which was a big bone of contention because they used the street. I know that Director Stone, I emailed with you about all the past history of that. My only other concern with it is, does the city now have the right-of-way established that would, in the existing Dairy Queen building, the city right-of-way goes through the seating area of Dairy Queen. Is that all established so that if someone new built there, we wouldn't be having more issues like we did back in 2000-something, early 2000s? So I just want to make sure that that's all, that everyone keeps in mind, the neighborhood back there, the congestion of the neighborhood when we're talking about allowing a new business in there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for the public comments. Excuse me?
So a number of us are here.
Come to the microphone, please. Okay.
Yeah, Todd Atchison, 1451 Grim Road, Athens. A number of us are here for a specific different purpose from this rezoning, so maybe you want to separate
Well,
us from...
so if it's not on the agenda, at the end, we have an opportunity
Very good.
for comments on other issues.
Yeah,
So,
good.
yeah.
Thanks.
I brought copies of my presentation.
And this is on the zoning changes?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And I had sent a copy to Chris Knisley and communicated that she said she wouldn't be here today, so pass the paper. And Mr. DePasqua, I did check the zoning on that this morning to make sure it's still accurate.
Okay,
She said we needed to be
okay.
as accurate as possible.
Is Jack get a copy?
Oh, you should have a copy. Yes, I sent it to you, but here, absolutely.
I didn't get his email yet, but unless you sent it.
No, I sent it after you sent out the initial proposal to be presented.
So name and address, please.
Yes. Joan Kornansky, 56 Mound Street. And when I walk up the hill from my house to where I park my car, I can actually see the back of the former Children and Family Services building. So it is right in my view skate. So I did attend the meeting, and from that point I received an email that the city planner sent out indicating the changes that would be proposed to the Planning Commission. And I would like to read that letter. Dear Megan, first I want to applaud you for handling yourself professionally at such a contentious meeting. There were many direct questions regarding the need for, the rationale for, and the lack of understanding of the existing community in regard to the proposed rezoning area. With that said, I was puzzled that the rezoning map, and this is what we're seeing today, presented did not address the views expressed at the meeting. There was some interest in a more walkable environment, but not at the expense of neighborhood/community that we now reside in. The rezoning of North Lancaster as a B1 adjacent to an R3 leaves the whole B1 area open to R3, multiple residential units. This is exactly what happened at the corner of Mound and Lancaster several years ago. At that location, that intersection was a B1. At that location, we, the neighborhood, not only lost a convenience store, so obviously the opposite of what you're proposing here, we gained a noisy, multi-story student rental building. And I noted the Athens City Code reference to how that occurs, and that is because in a B1, the R residence, the R code that is the least restrictive is what is then allowed in the B1 area. I hope you can reconsider eliminating the R1 zones, and I'll say it again, eliminating the R1 zones in the proposed area and work out a feasible alternative to business development on Columbus Road.
Do you mean R1?
B1, you meant B1.
Eliminating?
No, eliminating, because what they're doing in the proposal is eliminating the R1. So I want to reconsider your idea to eliminate the R1.
Okay.
It may be a little confusing, but thank you
Well,
for...
yeah, okay.
I would like to say what really puzzled me at the meeting as soon as I walked in, because I really like to be straightforward and direct, as some of you may know. When we were given the multiple example maps, the very first one showed the area as it existed at that point, and that was June, as it is now. And rather than identifying that whole area along North Lancaster and Columbia as an R1, it made indications as though it was multiply zoned. All the other maps we saw indicated at least which zone it was in. And I think the point was to influence people so that they would think that that whole area really was multi-use. But as I find on my street, Mound Street, even though we have a large number of student rentals at the north side of Mound Street, it's become more owner-occupied. And that is a situation that occurs. I mean, the city has been working with, trying to work, there's a whole committee set up to establish affordable housing for families, for people that want to come to Athens to work. We want to develop Athens. But if you take this area and turn it into a possible R3 zone, then you're actually countering what you were attempting to do a few years ago. So I find it really puzzling that perhaps, and maybe that's something could be discussed when we go through with this meeting, that Michelle is proposing, which I think is an excellent idea, a larger picture plan for how we see housing and what we need in the city of Athens. And with that, I would like to say I hope that you postpone this and we have further discussions. Thank you.
Mayor, did you have?
No, I have a comment I'd like to make at the end if anybody else wanting to speak to this, on this topic.
So is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, well, once again, I'll thank you all for your comments and input. Mayor?
I would like to make a motion that we table this. I do agree with continued conversations about this area. I think this has been a great opportunity for those of you who are clearly very vested in this neighborhood. I know the neighborhood well. I understand the cliff. Ms. Pappy, cliff, I mean, it's steep. It's I will give you that. It is a cliff. I do want to look into some of the issues that came forward. I think that looking at this map, in particular, Mr. Eichenberg, where your parcel is on that triangle, I remember that being built, and I was a big fan of smaller profile homes, just FYI. I think that is another direction that we need to continue to explore and embrace, because we have some parcels that are just small and challenging for everyone and anyone. But you point out the R3/R1. That is interesting. I want to look into that a little bit deeper. I mean, some of these parcels, as you indicated, are very small. While there may be one property owner of two parcels, are they hooked together? I would just like to do more background on some of those in particular.
We appreciate that.
I would support that as well. As a property owner on Union Street, when we went to redevelop that piece of property, we had a difficult time because the zoning went right through the property. And so we had part of the building in a business zone, part of it in a residential, and it took a bit of time and effort to be able to get that corrected so we could, so I would like to I'd like to make sure that if there are parcels there that are in two different zones, that they are actually independent parcels, as opposed to being covered by a single building or something, so, yeah.
The last comment I'd like to make to this whole plan is that the administration was approached, several years ago now, when the Ohio Valley Museum of Discovery was taking over the former church and building the Children's Museum. Thank goodness we have a Children's Museum in the city of Athens that is in a space that they can develop further. Anyway, the fire station headquarters has the footprint of the building itself and the parcel it sits on. There's also a smaller parcel that is to the north-ish, and it would complement any outdoor children's activity space, AKA a park or a parklet in that area. That also requires city council approval to transfer that to the Ohio Valley Museum of Discovery. But it is something that I had indicated to the museum that I would certainly be a fan of for that small, it's a real small little parcel that sits right next to the fire station headquarters. The fire station headquarters, on the other hand, there are a multitude of individuals who have shown interest in repurposing the fire station headquarters into something that would be income tax related for the city of Athens, because we all recognize that our general fund comes from income taxes in the city of Athens. That's where our general revenue comes from, and that's where we as a community continue to thrive when it comes to economic development. I recognize that a small parcel that's next to the fire station headquarters as a park is not going to generate any income, any revenue whatsoever, but the fire station headquarters could in the future. So that's part of this process too, is thinking how we can have it fit in a properly zoned area to where legally it is functioning as we have been exploring it function in the future. So, thank you, Mr. President.
I would also like to say that one of the things that I'd like to see accomplished is how that whole Columbus Road corridor is developed, because it was set up when 33 came through town, and it's not there anymore, and they had large right-of-ways, and I'd like to see us find ways to use more of that land for other things than just right-of-way, open right-of-way. Anyway, so thank you. Thanks. Yes, Ms. Jennings.
Can I have some time to respond to some of the public comment, just to clarify? Okay. I'm kind of going to work a little backwards. So first, I wanted to clarify that the board that Ms. Krasinski referenced, I have that pulled up on my laptop if they can show it on the screens really quick. I had a side-by-side of an aerial photo and land uses. If GTV could show my computer screen. Thank you. So this was the board that I had printed at the meeting. So it was a side-by-side of the aerial photo and the land uses, not mixed zoning. So I just wanted to clarify that. This was the board at the meeting. And then this was the other board of the proposed zoning map back in June. And one thing I wanted to point out on this board, and I apologize for anyone who gets seasick, I'm going to zoom in really quick. I had a list of the types of uses that one would see in the zones, and I wanted to particularly point out the B1 zone just for the sake of clarifying the scale of the types of development that would be allowed in the B1 zone. The B1 zone exists in order to provide neighborhood scale business. It's clear in the city code that it has to serve residents as its purpose, and we have our bulk controls to control the size and overall compatibility of the buildings in a B1 zone with the surrounding residential uses. So I wanted to just point out that in a B1 we would have your typical small-scale retail businesses as well as restaurants, which go under the service establishments as well as the small-scale offices. The B1 zone also allows for all residential types, and then within the past year, we did include vape stores, but they are conditional use, so would have to get approved by the BZA. And then within the R3, that includes the single-family and duplexes, which are allowed in the R1 and R2 zone. And then R3 also opens up for residential units that are 2 or more units, as well as bed and breakfasts, and even our short-term rentals are allowed in the R3, but they do have locational requirements, so that I don't think they would be allowed in this part of town besides Lancaster up to the 2nd Street. I will have to double check that. But I did just want to show those two boards and just clarify that the B1 zone is meant to be serving a neighborhood and providing uses that residents typically need. And the goal of changing the zoning in this area, which I'll go to back to our current proposed zoning map, the goal for adding business zones in this area is to provide walkable commercial for the neighborhood. And as a urban planner, we are faced with always having to argue for or against vehicles, and especially with redevelopment. If we're constantly planning and allowing for vehicles, they will constantly exist and cause issues in our neighborhood. And so our goal for the walkable aspect of this redevelopment was to reduce the amount of vehicle traffic and open up the doors for these neighborhoods to have amenities that they could walk to. And earlier in my presentation, I mentioned the zoning buffers with the R2 zones and even somewhat the R3 zone. That these just protect the R1 zones from the more intense zoning, like the B2 along Columbus Road. And then we proposed the R3 zone along Columbia because it matched a lot of the existing land uses. So it was appropriate to rezone those properties from R1, which was not compatible with the existing land uses, to R3, which was. I believe that's all I have to say, and if the Planning Commission have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the table to table this or postpone any vote on this. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Second. Are there any additional comments or information before we have a vote? I guess one question I would have, are we asking our planner to re-engage the community during this postponement period? Is that what this postponement is intended to do?
I believe so, as well
Okay, as well as verify the data,
planning
the accuracy of the data,
And any interested, I mean, I think all the
Yes.
planning commissioners should be interested in this.
yes,
Yep.
okay.
One comment that I would have, though, I would like to take this forward in this calendar year, just from a city operations perspective, so I'd rather not postpone it indefinitely. So we really would like to pick it back up and see what additional adjustments to the proposed zoning, and then untable it and move something forward to city council to help us get a little bit better, a little bit closer to existing land uses, if not fully changing the zoning to make everything compatible.
Yes.
So therefore, I agree with Commissioner Stone. Let me rephrase my motion. So I have a motion to table with the intent, with the surety that we are going to readdress this this calendar year as we move forward, but with more information from those who are interested in participating.
I would second the revised motion.
And we don't want to put a time frame on that, say 30 days or anything like that at this point? I guess we got about a little bit more than 90 days left in the calendar year.
I would just leave it at this calendar year.
Okay.
I second the proposed revised motion.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? So then, I ask anyone, are those that are present here on the commission that support this proposed or motion to say aye? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. So once again, Ms. Rapp has recused herself, so it passed 3-0. Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a communication, a Title 41 application for 9 Cross Street. Okay.
It's cost, actually.
Costs?
Costs.
Oh, okay.
No R.
I'll get rid of the R on my. Thank you, sir. Name and
Eric Carr, with Ohio University, Senior Project Manager, Interim Director of Design and Construction. So just here to answer any questions you have.
Okay. You want to make a small presentation? Do we have the slides for that?
10-page slide, yeah.
Yeah, just to talk about, obviously, I think I don't know if the audience knows, but, I know where that is located and everything, but maybe just a quick description of what you're proposing to do
Yeah,
there.
this is on the north green of Ohio University where the art district is, College of Fine Arts. So there's McCracken Hall, which is the School of Education, as well as Siegfried, Putnam Hall, Glidden, they're all in that area, and this project is going in the green space. So, I don't know if that answered it or not, but.
So does anybody on the commission or the city staff have any questions or comments they'd like to make? Yes, Mayor?
I'll certainly make a comment, because we, and this is for the public and those of you who are here today, we, from time to time, receive plans from the university for projects that they are building, and I think it's a wonderful courtesy and stewardship and collaboration to where the university comes to the Planning Commission to update us on projects that are going on, new builds or major renovations on the university campus. They are their own political subdivision as a state university, and so therefore, for them, as long as they are keeping us informed of things like the location of the build with the underground infrastructure that may exist in that area, i.e. water, sewer, storm, those things of that nature, then we're aware of what's going on so that we don't have any oops moments with new builds or building that's going on campus. So I just want to make that clear to everyone who's watching that again, when it comes to development on the university campus, that is fully within the wheelhouse of the university and university development, not as much this body other than being informed of what is happening on campus. And so for that, I appreciate you.
Well, and I might add, this project is probably a little different than most projects we do because it would have probably the highest public engagement for the community. It's going to be a performing arts center, brand new 350-seat theater. It's probably going to be one of the nicest facilities and rival a lot of stuff in Columbus, and have a lot of shows that will be open to the public.
Better than Columbus.
I hope so. I hope so.
I do have a couple questions, and perhaps this is for staff. So, one of the reasons that Ohio University has to come forward and present at Planning Commission is when they can't comply with zoning for one reason or another. Can we highlight the areas where this particular project doesn't comply with zoning? I believe it's in height because of the curtain.
Fly tower.
The fly tower, that's what it's called. Yeah. So is there a photo or anything we can pull?
I'm trying.
Yeah, I think there's about 10
Yeah.
10 sheets of renderings and floor plans, but
there's-
I think we're at 88 feet to the top. I will say this gets hidden because it's right next to the Jeff Hill. So when you're looking at it, your Siegfried's still above it. It's not really affecting much line of sight.
Okay.
Can't do it.
It's taking a long time, I'm sorry.
I think we've provided some staff comments about the particular
Yes.
project, and most of them revolving around fire, which is, one of the biggest issues with the theater, right?
Yep.
Access both during construction and afterwards.
I think there'll be multiple accesses to the center when we get done.
And I think that David is working on capacity fee calculations, if I'm not mistaken.
We finally got all the fixtures and stuff we needed.
Very good.
Well, this is coming forward as a communication,
Right,
so we
so,
will
yes.
discuss this again.
I don't think it will.
No, I don't think
No, we're not gonna discuss
we will
it
not.
again.
This is it. This is it.
This is
We
it.
do
This is
not
the
have to, we
communication.
do not have to
That's
vote
This
on
is not a
this.
case, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to give you a brief overview of everything that's going on there, because it's a $112 million project. The Performing Arts Center is about 45,000 square feet with a 350-seat performance theater in it. It's going to have a new gallery space, so they're the renderings. a new gallery space to show off all the art that comes from the college. It's going to have a rehearsal theater as well, and the scene shop and prop shop, wood shop are all going to be attached to it to ease. So they will be doing labs and work in about a quarter of the building that will be for shows, so they don't have to pull all their scene shop from other places to bring it to the theater. So it should be way more convenient as well. This is a view looking north, kind of between the Patton Educational Building. And then this is plan view, site view.
Thank you very much.
Also, as part of this project, just to let everybody know, there will also be 2 more theater spaces that public will be able to come and see performances in Siegfried on the top floor, because Siegfried is also getting a full renovation. So.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So the next item on the agenda are reports. Do we have anything from the code office?
The only thing I would say was, I think we'll be getting the rest of the drawings for U White on Columbus Road. We'll be getting ready to come back.
Okay. So we might expect them in early September, or
Yep.
possibly in September. Okay. Ms. Jennings, do you have anything to report?
Just to let the Planning Commission know that our American Structure Point consultants will be returning in early September in order to present the results of our code audit, as well as present the public input summary report from our neighborhood corridor overlay zone public input back in February. So it's taken a minute just to codify all of that data, but they will be returning in early September to report on both of those things.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
I don't believe so.
Okay, you have something?
I do have something.
Oh, well,
A
please.
couple things.
Go ahead.
One challenging, the other one great. Just as a reminder to anyone who's watching and to those of you who are here with us today, that Stimson Avenue, the bridge itself, it is one way, just to allow for the university move-in, which is happening now as we speak. So we apologize for any alleged inconvenience, but it's the only alternative. Otherwise, we'd see cars backing up onto US 33, which would be a complete disaster. So it is going to run through the 25th of maintaining that one way. Note that it is flashing red if you come off Rock Riffle /25, County Road 25, and you're turning west onto Stimson Avenue. And so just make sure you're following the rules of the road, courtesy for those who are coming off of US 33 in that direction. I think for those of us who live here, we know how to exit from the city, but just as a reminder, you can use North Lancaster, you can use Richland Avenue. There are other ways in which to get back onto US 33, 3250, as you're leaving the city of Athens, or use East State Street. So I'm throwing that out as a reminder. The other thing I want to share with all of you, as former council member Michelle Pappy knows, that I have been working so hard as a council member and as the mayor to get the Armory alive and operational again. So I'm just throwing this out as a courtesy to all of you. On September 30th, at approximately 1:30 in the afternoon, we will have an open house at the Armory for people to come in and get to experience the Armory, where many of you have not been able to experience it since the mid-90s, 1990. 97 is when the Ohio National Guard sold it to the city of Athens, and it basically sat as cold storage for things. But I think I encourage all who are interested to come and be there for that open house. I think you'll find that it's truly remarkable what we have been able to accomplish in creating a space that people can experience once again. And it certainly pays homage to our military members who have served out of the Ohio National Guard at the Athens Armory. But it'll also have the opportunity to host a sundry of different events that people want to use in that particular space. So I just want to get that on people's radar.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the next item on the agenda is the opportunity for citizens to speak on items that are not covered on the agenda. So anybody who would like to speak on some issue other than what we've talked about today, please state your name and address for us.
I would like to speak. I'm John Branner, Athens, North Peach Ridge Road, Athens, Ohio. And I'm here to present legal research that we asked Attorney Joan Sowash to do about these apartment developments being under the guise of your all subdivision regulations. I know David and I have had some email discussions back and forth, and we're engineers, so I thought I'd try to get a legal interpretation of it, and I want to basically present this to you. And then last week at the Regional Planning Commission,
Excuse me, could I ask you to stay close to the microphone so we make sure that the audience can hear and we pick it up so that we have it recorded? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah, you don't have to bend that, but just you're moving around, and I don't know what's happening with the feed.
In the last month, I've been to more meetings than I have in my whole entire life, and I'm 75, so that tells you I'm not used to this stuff.
That's sure.
I appreciate y'all having me, but as I was saying, we're engineers, and we had some, I think, differences on interpretation, and it was respectful and all that, but the point is when I was practicing surveying, we brought subdivisions to your all's committee, and a lot of it was a farmer wanting to deed out 3 or 4 parcels to a son. Of course, they didn't have the road frontage, and it went through the full subdivision process. Now we're looking at over in the Plains, we're looking at 2 apartment developments that are 100+ residents. And plus 200 parking places, and somehow they don't get the review Farmer Jones would have if he was trying to sell. So that's what ticked me. I said, this can't be right. So the County Commissioner's Handbook on page 7, which I have included in here, clearly says apartments can be treated as subdivisions, and they referred to an Ohio General's Opinion 70D20, I believe, and it was Marion County requesting guidance from the Attorney General because they were getting a flurry of developments that coming in claiming private infrastructure, and it was exempt from subdivision regulations. And do I have a time limit? Okay. Okay. So where was I? Getting to
claiming
Marion County.
Oh, Marion County. Okay. So the Attorney General came back and said, yeah, these are subdivisions, but I'm not going to go into the legal lease. I'm going to give you the form here. But the distinction I want you to say in your subdivision relations, they call for public infrastructure, but that's based on the ORC code, and it says public and private infrastructure, and that is what Ohio General Attorney's opinion. But that's all I can do on legal lease. Otherwise, this is important for y'all to address because you're going to get more of them. You'll probably get less mom and pop farms. They've been all kind of cut up, and you're going to get more people. And we aren't against apartments, especially affordable living. I think that's really a key to our housing crisis. But we just think that they should have the same oversight that, let's say, somebody that would be living in Whitland Woods or something would have if they were living in it. So your subdivision regulations cover a lot of aspects that the zoning doesn't cover. And of course, you all know there are different layers require different interpretations and requirements. So I know this is kind of late in the process. We've been to several OFA board meetings, and so we'd like to have a meeting where John would be here today, but he's at a reunion. He can't make it. But we would like to have a meeting as soon as next week, because time is of the essence. These developments are being somewhat delayed by the archaeological surveys. And we could present our legal findings, and you could see if they make, sense of, these are subdivisions.
So what you have is, you have some information that your attorney has put together as to how we ought to proceed. And I would be happy to take that and turn that over to the city's legal counsel to review. In terms of setting up a meeting or anything, we'd have to wait and see what our legal counsel suggests with regard to that. But I'd be happy to take that information. And I'll get it to the city officials, which are right here, and they can deal with that. So, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Todd Atchison, 1451 Grimm Road, Athens. John and I have been working together on this, and we have an informal group, the East First Street Neighborhood Association, and we've also joined hands with Friends of the Plains Mounds on the concerns that we have with these LIHTC developments going in on East First Street in the Plains. Just remember a short context here. We have two LIHTC apartment complexes that are being funded by OFA. They're across the street from each other on East First Street, within a few hundred feet of each other. And as John pointed out, over 100 units, some of them multi-bedroom. And the archaeological significance of the plains is something that's really dramatic, and is not really something that's been covered much at all. The Athens Township has what we call light zoning, and what these developments have demonstrated to us just how weak light zoning is in Athens Township and the plains. The only impediment to building as large a building as you want in the plains is parking, that you have to have 2 parking spots per unit. And so these parcels that these LIHTC people have targeted are covered as about as much as is humanly possible with buildings and parking lot coverage. You can see that in the site plans that John submitted with that legal context. So we aren't against LIHTC, we aren't against development, but we are for protecting cultural heritage, archaeological heritage, and also the neighborhood that we live in, and that's what the East First Street Neighbors Association is about. These buildings are huge. One of them, the lofts, is almost 300 feet long, 284 feet long, and 3 stories high, 41 feet, towering over what's basically single-family residence in the area, and directly abutting R1. So we have one of these, the Columbia Avenue zoning thing brought up some of the extreme flaws that we've seen in the plains zoning, where we've got R3 up against R1 with no buffering, no gradation of height, no height restrictions in the plains whatsoever. So that's a big deal. People may not be aware that the whole of the plains is called Wolf Plains archaeologically, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. 2,300 acres, I believe, is the size of it. So this has been there since the mid-'70s, and almost nobody knows that exists. Additionally, there is the Ohio Archaeological Inventory, which is a registry maintained by the State Historic Preservation Office about all the known archaeological and historic sites in Ohio. These developments, each one of them across the street from each other, are being built directly on sites that are listed in the Ohio Archaeological Inventory. The whole process for these developments is basically done in secret. John and I discovered it only because we had bore samples being taken about 5 months ago now. And we came to you then and suggested that you guys should play in this game to analyze what's going on with these developments. And since then, we've done a lot of homework. We've taken a lot of knocks through OFA up in Columbus, but our homework indicates that indeed, if it walks like a subdivision, talks like it, et cetera, it probably is, and it's within your 3-mile sphere of influence. So, and one of the key components in your subdivision regulations is the protection of historic and archaeological resources. And the only other protection that we've been able to apply is ORC 14953, which specifies that any publicly funded project has to consider the historical and archaeological aspects of the site that they're developing. This is the only concession that we've gotten out of the developers or OFA in our months of dealing with this, is that they're requiring an archaeological survey from each development working in conjunction with SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. We know Cornerstone and State Historic Preservation Office has standards for conducting archaeological surveys. They're very specific, and they require geophysical surveys as the standard associated with earthworks, which is what the Plains is all about. We know Cornerstone is doing that because they've already been out on site. Woda Cooper, they're a very interesting company, very secretive. They don't talk to anybody. And their development, in order to do the gradiometric gravitational survey, you have to mow the property. You have to get within 6 inches of the ground. So Cornerstone, they did a nice mowing job. They went out with the equipment. Woda Cooper just exists still fully brush covered. And clearly, they're not going to be doing a standards-based survey as specified in the SHPO handbook for fieldwork. So this is an area where we think that you can play a very strong part, especially when you take on the subdivision review that we're requesting and demonstrating in our legal brief, because you have a strong statement about the need for correctly analyzing archaeological sites. A lot of public concern on this. We've had multiple petitions. We have petitions from the East First Street neighbors. Basically, everybody up and down East First Street has signed it, expressing concern about these developments. We have an archaeological specific petition, which is also circulating in the greater community, and we're continuing to gather signatures on that. We had a strongly attended meeting with the Friends of the Mound last week, also demonstrating strong public support. So, basically, that's my aspect in conjunction with John to point out the strong role that you can play in helping preserve our cultural heritage, or at least understanding it. Another key point, before I forget, is that without you being involved, we may never, the public, us neighbors, may never see these archaeological surveys. There's no mandate that these archaeological surveys that OFA is requiring will see the light of day. And so we may not get to interpret what's there or actually see what may be under the ground. And 90% of what's archaeologically significant in the plains is underground. The mounds are great, but they're the minority of what is there. The whole of the plains has been agricultural farms for almost 200 years. So everything, most of what is significant will be under the plow zone, which is about 18 inches deep. You won't see it on the surface. So the only way you see it is by using these standards-based geophysical surveys, ground penetrating radar, or the gravimetric radiometry. So this is key in terms of what's going on. So if you engaged in this review, you would be able to request these documents, and I believe you'd get them. as opposed to John and I asking for the East First Street neighbors, and we've already been rebuffed by State Historic Preservation Office on receiving documents. So this is very important stuff that we're trying to help preserve. Another key aspect is, what do you do when you find something significant? And I think you could guide discussions about what's appropriate, because there will be some very hard discussions that will have to occur because of the density of parking and buildings that are covering virtually all of the lot on both these developments. So what do you do with what you find? Is it time for just document and destroy, which is the standard which we're seeing throughout Ohio? Yeah, there's something very interesting there. We'll do a little study, and then we're going to dig our basement and build. So these are some of the concerns that have brought us back to you, and asking for your strong consideration of the position that we've developed on subdivision review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as I said, we'll turn that, the documents that were put together by you folks and John Sowash over to our legal counsel.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? With that, then, the last item on the agenda is any announcements or other business. Is there any announcements? I know the mayor commented on a couple of things already. Is Mr. Stone or Ms. Rapley, do you have anything?
Thank you.
Ms. Jennings, okay. With that, then, I'll bring this meeting to conclusion. Our next scheduled meeting is September 3rd. Thank you very much for those who participated and came, and to the commission as well as the city staff. Thank you very much. Have a good day.